What's up, everyone? We're live with the stock guy from Twitch. I thought he would be great to come on with his wide range of knowledge on a little bit of everything.
Let's not give me too much credit here.
Well, a lot of the people in the reptile hobby don't have a degree, but, we all focus on certain things, kind of like you focus on finance and business. And, I kind of thought you don't have a ton of reptile background, but do you know much about the reptile hobby at all? Like first impression as a business standpoint?
My only experience is fun story. I probably never told my stream this. When I was in the military, when you have somebody who lives off base, who's does whatever, they have a house or apartment, they get deployed somewhere, and they have animals. They oftentimes will let people who live in the barracks stay in their apartment and say, hey, you can stay in my house if you babysit, pet my animals or something like this. So I had a girl I was dating in the military, which that's another story, and she got that offer from somebody. But the dude had him and his girlfriend at the time, who went back with her parents, had about 18 animals. They had prairie dogs, chinchillas, they had a dog, they had rabbits, they had everything. They also had bearded geckos, bearded dragons. They had Pac-Man frogs. They had all these other things, and I was not prepared for this, and so I spent like a month just taking care of them. So I fed a lot of crickets and a lot of, what do you call it? Baby, pupas or whatever to these animals. So that's really my experience, is just that. But as far as like the actual business behind it, not really. I don't have any experience with it, but I assume that, it's pretty intensive. So I'd love for you to first off tell me how you're in this and like what it is, and then let's go from there. I'd love to learn more about it.
So initially, my wife and I actually got our kids pet reptiles, and then my wife and I got some, and then we decided to start breeding them 6 years ago. And at the time, we were, in a smaller mobile home, and we, slowly grew it over time to now we're in a 400 square foot space with the reptiles. We have multiple different species, but primary blue tongue skinks we work with.
Is that what's in the things behind you?
Yep, those are custom racks that my friend Danny, he's pretty handy. I used to be a lot more handy before I'm in a wheelchair, so it makes it a little harder to do some stuff. But so he helped us build all those. A lot of people use either racks with no lights or enclosures. We thought these would be better to kind of give the happy medium to make it easier on us, yet, still provide a happy life for the animals.
Okay. And so, like, what's the business entail? Like, somebody reaches out to you for like a specific type, a specific size, or like, what is the business side of that? I'm really curious.
So it's a combination. You have some people reach out, they want basically just anyone. They're not too worried on the cost, where others will want something more specific. We there's certain ones that will, like, for example, albino blue tongues. Those will run for about $10,000, whereas some of the
Jeez, I'm in
more
the wrong
base,
business.
yeah, that's certain ones. So this one's more of a classic one that you can see just to see what they kind of look up. So something like that might be more like $250, $300, so a little more
And
budget
what's your typical
friendly.
clientele like? Is it like a certain type of group of people are generally the ones, or is it like all across the spectrum of type of people that collect these or have them as pets?
So the nice part about these, they're kind of like the perfect medium-sized starter pet. You don't have to feed them insects if you don't want. You can feed them
Mm-hmm.
grain-free dog food. They don't get too big. They max out at 2 feet. They're not super huge though.
That's pretty
Yeah,
big.
yeah, but it's only 2 pounds.
Yeah.
It's not a huge animal, and enclosure wise, most people use 4 foot by 2 foot, so that doesn't take up your whole house. And usually they're pretty calm and handleable. So with some adult supervision, they can even be good for young kids.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, maybe that's why I'll get my next kid because not my the pet for my kids next. Get him a lizard. Maybe we can do they run, can you have them run around the house? Or they have to kind of stay in the enclosure.
If you supervise them, you can. You just got to kind of have it pet proof. Like part of the room you can't see, we have basically like baseboards in front of the stuff. That way they can't get underneath. But also we have it's like a 6 foot pop up pet thing that they're made for bigger dogs, but you can put the lizard in that and they can't escape that because if a dog can't claw through it, a lizard can't.
Do you have to have like a license to do this, or is it like are you doing this on like the black market? I'm just kidding, but like how do you do it? Is it just be like a licensed dealer, or is it like is there something with that?
Each state's a little different. So certain ones you do, certain ones you don't. Certain states are a lot more restrictive on other animals, like especially bigger ones and venomous, which is, the nice thing about this. It's not too big and, it might hurt a little bit if it bites you, but you're not going to lose a finger and you're not going to die from like a cobra.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right,
It's
no, I mean
just a
it's
pinch.
kind of cool. I mean it's like it's kind of one of those things where it's like you kind of raise these guys up and then you feed them and then you got people to buy them and then do people come to you? Can you ship them? How do you get them to your clients or
Yeah,
your
so
customers?
through basically you can ship them overnight priority, and depending on the weather makes it a little harder, but there are things to that way you can ship anywhere from like 30 degrees to 90 degrees, so it is a
Mm-hmm.
pretty wide range, but if it's like -20, it's better to wait.
I just realized this is live. I wish I would have known. I would have told everybody to watch it after. I thought it was going to be recorded.
I posted in Discord, so there might be a few people at least.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if I would have known it was if we were doing it live, that would have been cool. I could have told everybody.
No, it's all right. But yeah, so you know certain species you can export in and out of the US. These ones you can't because they recently changed the classification on them
Mm-hmm.
because some of them get smuggled out of Australia.
Oh, okay. And what state are you in?
Minnesota.
Oh, okay. All right. So, I mean, do you get any have you thought about potentially like licensing that as like a daycare?
No,
Come on, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm just saying. Joke. Don't cancel me.
yeah, no, that's definitely been a tricky one going on too that puts a lot of, I think, overall economic issues that might affect down the road too.
Yeah, I'm just saying though. I mean, geckos. I mean, you have to feed them, care for them. I mean, you might qualify. You never know. All right, so let me ask you about this. I know you brought me on to ask questions, but I like to learn about stuff that I'm not familiar with. So, what is the economics of this? What does it cost you to buy, to import, to feed, to raise them, and then versus what you sell them at? Like, what is the average there? What do you buy them at and spend raising them versus what you make on them?
So that will kind of vary depending, since people breed them. Some of that actual cost is going to depend on how successful you are and what you produce. So, you know, we're not trying to be large scale, I guess be the best way to put it. So much time in the day with all the other stuff going on that where certain people will do like massive scale producing, thousands of lizards a year.
Mm-hmm.
So your actual cost can vary, but we'll say maybe $100 to $150 depending on it. As adults, they don't eat a lot, which is nice. You feed them once a week. You could portion out their food and freeze it in, ice cube trays. That way you pop out a cube once a week and feed it,
Mm-hmm. So,
if
like,
you
if you
got
made like $100 a lizard, at what point would it be like sustainable? Like, would you have to sell like 10 lizards a month or 50 lizards a month? Like as far as like a business.
that one's really going to depend on the overhead. Like some people will have, like they need to sell 6,000 months because they have a warehouse, employees, and a lot more overhead. So that's where, we're kind of the leaner approach. We don't have a ton of overhead. We don't have a 3,000 square foot building at, 6,000 a month plus. Other species too, they have a higher feeder cost. Like snakes can be more expensive. Either you got to breed the rats then or buy them at, $3 a rat or so.
Or just let them breed in your house. I guess I've seen a few of those those Zillows on Friday. So I got a few Zillows you might want to be able to pick up some free rats from.
It might actually be a little less than 100, but depending on how well you do, like some people, if they have a really successful year, for example, they'll wholesale some out. That way,
What's
it's
like
less
the
on.
most profitable reptile to like cost efficient, like to buy to pay for, import, whatever, raise, and then sell? Forget danger. I mean, I'm just like, what would be, what's that? The reptile space.
That's hard because like some like ball pythons, you could buy a $25,000 one, breed it, and the babies, that if you get them to breed quick enough, you might be able to sell for you know 20,000 each baby, so you're making 100,000 on a clutch. But that's only a high percentage of the people actually getting that.
I mean, just get a big ass male and just find you a sexy female and just be like, y'all do your thing. I'm gonna sit in this chair and watch. You know what I mean? And like maybe that'll get them going. I don't know. I don't know snakes or pythons. In Florida, they actually pay you to go out in the Everglades and catch them now because there's so many of them got out and got wild that they actually like they pay people to go out and hunt pythons and boas out there in the Everglades.
Well, and what doesn't make sense on that, they used to let reptile keepers collect them and send them out of state, where they stopped it for years. Now they pay them.
Yeah, I was thinking about getting a python for my kids. I figure about 9 foot would be safe, but it's one of those ones where my wife convinced me out of it, so I figured, okay, we'll just go with a smaller thing. I mean, obviously, the cost of that. I've seen people with those pet pythons. I've always thought to myself as a pet, a snake seems cool, like, but at the same time, it's a weird thing because they say that snakes don't develop actual like feelings, like attachments, like loyalty and love and stuff like that, but they will understand that you feed them so that they're careful with you and that like they like the warmth and stuff. So it does appear that they're like pets, but I mean, I always thought it might be cool to have a snake as a pet, but I feel like I don't know. I don't know. It feels like a weird dynamic there.
They're actually, reptiles in general are smarter than they realize. They've done recent studies. So there is, they recognize you definitely. They will almost like a bond, they'll like a certain person better than the other for whatever reason. So there's a lot more going on. It's hard to truly know. But yeah, they're not as smart as like a dog, for example, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, I've always thought about, you see those people that have videos of like a wild animal they domesticated, and you seem like, man, that's going to be a really good pet. That would be cool. But then you realize that it's a lot of work, and they're not. You're just seeing the videos. Like I've seen people with sugar gliders. My kids love sugar gliders, and I keep thinking to myself, man, what a cool pet to have. But then you realize like they need to have like a lot of space, and you need to get a second one because they don't like being lonely, and there's like every one of them's different. It's like, man, what's so difficult to decide? So I mean, reptiles I think is an interesting, a type of pet. What's the most kid friendly reptile pet, do you think?
Do you want a snake or a lizard?
Well, I'm thinking something that can't eat my kid.
Well, like
At least not the biggest one.
they have like, so even ball pythons is a common, reptile that a lot of people take, and they'll be 3-4 foot long as adults. And
Really?
they're,
Only that big? I thought they were ball pythons. I thought they got a little bit bigger than that. So those like smaller versions of them.
yeah, I mean, there are some localities that will get bigger, and if you massively feed them, you can get some thick, fat, 5-footers.
Mm-hmm.
But even like house snakes, they're a smaller one that are more commonly captive bred now, and those you know, are man, like 2 foot long, maybe, but they're like a hot dog's thickness around, maybe a little thicker than a
Yeah,
hot dog.
I know.
So
Get
it's
my
not,
wife on the stream here.
so it's not
Girl
too
math
bad.
wouldn't girl always say that's not a hot dog, that's a sausage. You gotta get that girl math in there.
Yeah. So, there's, and even like say on lizards, even if, say some people 2 foot's too big, they do have smaller geckos that have pros and cons. Those you got to worry about jumping. So, but there's, other smaller lizards and like leopard geckos that are like 6 inches that are pretty calm. But then you got to worry. I don't know if your wife, she probably wouldn't be scared of just like crickets or little worms in the house, but as long as they're in a
No, well,
cage.
no, she's deathly terrified of cockroaches. I have heard her scream bloody murder. I have grabbed my gun thinking we were being like she was like at knife point, and there's a roach in there's a cockroach in the tub, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like it's insane. I don't get it, but maybe having something, because the funny thing about my wife is in India they tell a lot of like old wives tales like we do here, right? Like if you leave this on, it'll happen, or if you eat if you swallow gum, it takes 7 years. In India, they told them that all of the lizards were poisonous or venomous or whatever. So when we had little geckos in our house in Florida, she would get scared that they were going to bite her, and she was going to get, the venom was going to get in there, because that's just, I had to convince her. I'm like, there's literally no venomous lizards in India. There's not a single one. I said it's not, in the Southwest U.S. you got Gila monsters and in got Komodo dragons and stuff, but Komodos aren't even venomous. They just have that bacteria in their mouth, but they'll just eat you anyways. But like I couldn't convince her of that.
Yeah, and you get that ingrained in you. That's why a lot of people are scared of snakes at first, and it takes getting over that fear that you see a lot of people actually like them as pets.
Yeah, I don't mind snakes. Spiders are what get me, man. Little spiders, not big spiders, but little ones. I think it's because I grew up in the South and brown recluses were like small and got in like every little corner, and I've seen those bites. And so it's just like every time a spider jumps on me or I walk into a web, for some reason my brain thinks brown recluse and it just goes nuts. It's just like, I don't know, it's like ingrained in my head that it's always a brown recluse, So I don't know, that's my only one where I avoid. But I like snakes. I actually really do enjoy them. It's just hard to, you're obviously an expert in this, so like by identifying which ones are poisonous at the time, or not. Like I know like a copperhead, a cottonmouth, or a copperhead, and like a coral versus a king snake. But like for the most part, like if you travel outside the U.S., it's like, all right, am I good or not?
Well, and the nice thing, even though you're not exactly sure where you're going to stay in Delaware, there is a lot of expos in that area. If you do decide to get one down the road, like Delaware, God, Pennsylvania has some. I know Rhode Island and a couple around you. That way, you could get something captive bred that you don't have to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because
I'll ask my wife if it's cool. I'll be like, hey babe, we're gonna get a snake.
And end of the day, sadly, I wouldn't even consider us experts. Even on the species that we've been breeding for years, we're still learning. It's
And whose
you
idea was it, you or your wife?
kind of a combination.
It was you, wasn't it?
Yes and no. Like she's really into it. But the nice thing, it gives my brain something to do, something to think about at times. Distractions when say, my back's not feeling the best, or if that makes sense.
No, it does. I'm just, so it's more so like it gave you something to do, and she wanted to support that, right?
Well, she's pretty heavily evolved too. I don't want to like take all the credit, but the downfall, part of the year she does teach too, so she got to focus on some of that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I just think it's a cool like an idea that it's a hobby but also a business at the same time, and like it gives you something to do, but also there's an income, and you're constantly learning, and you're keeping yourself like, because like you said, it could get depressing, get lonely sometimes when you're doing stuff and you don't have anything to do. It's like boom, it gives you something, you're looking after them. Do you guys have kids?
Yeah, so I have a 13-year-old from a different relationship. Then I got 4 older stepkids that are 19 to 23.
Oh, okay. Do they get
So
involved with it?
yeah, um, some of the older, the one of my second oldest son helped a lot when he was younger, helped build stuff, but now he's has working on his second grandkid or a second kid of his own and working on a music career on top, so he's kind of
He's
busier.
kind of preoccupied.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting, to find this out. Like, I'm the kind of guy who I was like, I think, from a monetary standpoint, I'm like, all right, anytime I hear business, I'm like, oh, okay, what's the cost associated with what's the profit, what's the overhead, the margin percentage, like, what's the risk, what's the competition, like, what you guys do? You guys compete with other small breeders, or do you guys like compete with large scale? Like, how do you like, how's competition work in this? How heated is that?
So there's, definitely you try to be an overall community, but there's definitely competition at the end of the day. There is, depending on the species, like for example, blue tongues, there's probably 20 to 30 smaller breeders in the US with 5 to 10 bigger breeders. So it is not, other species have a lot more competition. Like for example, ball pythons, that's one of the most bred species. There's like 40,000 available. They range from $10 all the way to 50,000.
So, okay, can I stop you there? This is where I get interested. What what makes a bald python a $10 python versus a $50,000 python? Like, what is that?
So a $10 one would be like a normal, no genetics, where $50,000 you need multiple of the right genetics for the right projects that you feel are investments to make future pythons that other breeders will want, to the
And
point
why
it's
do they want them? Like, for a racehorse, I get it. Like, you want a purebred, thoroughbred, good stock coming from a race winner to win money from it. Like, what is it that these people are wanting to sell them for? Is it just breeders selling to breeder, or is there like I guess the end user is what I'm talking about, the final customer? What is it about them? What are they looking for? Not a breeder, but a customer that makes it a 50,000 versus a $10.
so that's some of the hard part. Like a lot of the a lot of them in any species go to pet keepers, anywhere from they get one pet to 20 and they fill a room with them.
Like, are there like,
And
is there like an underground python fighting ring or something? Like, what makes one superior to the other for a customer? Just the color, the temperament?
color, how well they age as adults, some have different patterns based on the mutation, and then
Interesting, like marriage.
how much time you can save on your project. So like some mutations you need are like a recessive, you need two of them. So like uh, a, either a visual on each side or a head on each side to reproduce them. So like an albino to an albino, all the babies will be albinos.
Hmm.
So you certain combinations you can save time, even to the point there's genetic companies that will test the pythons to prove out what genetics are in them
Hmm.
to save time. So because of that, that's where you get certain mutations will go from 10,000 1 year all the way to 1,000 in 2 years, just from that kind of supply and demand marketing by certain breeders. There was a time other breeders kind of pushed it too much as an investment. Like you can't lose, where you realize that there is some business to it, there's more to it than just throwing two snakes in a tub to breed and you get magically 50 grand.
So hear me out. What if I got a brother and a sister python, and I got them to mate, and they had kids, and then I had their kids to mate, and I inbred that so much that I got a two-headed python? Those go for a lot of money, right?
They do, but those are more random than inbreeding.
Oh shit. Okay, I was just thinking maybe I'd do the Habsburg route, but I'm not. I'm not. I don't know. I'm not European, so I don't know how they do that. I'll ask my buddy
Yeah,
Candace. She's
like
French. She'll probably know.
yeah. Well, in some of those, the
I'm
hard
always
part was
looking
like
for
the
an angle,
two-headed.
man. I'm always looking for an angle. You know.
Oh, and that's the hard part. A lot of people that did get in that aren't around were looking for the quick cash. Kind of the
Have you ever thought
FOMO
about moving
marketing.
to? Have you ever thought about moving into like pythons or something? Or are you kind of stuck with the geckos?
Uh, we we're kind of maxed on room. One, we don't where we're at. We'd have to get a bigger place then,
Mm-hmm.
and timing's not necessarily right on that financially. One with be twice as much probably interest on mortgage and stuff like that, but then a lot more cost, which gets I don't we don't want to stretch ourselves too thin, I guess, be the best way to
No, no,
put
that
it.
makes total sense. Obviously, it's like with anything, you want to, maximize the space and keep the minimum amount of cost because if you go all in on that, you're going to be putting all your eggs in one basket. You got 3 pythons in the space, you could have 50 geckos, and it just doesn't, and plus the upkeep doesn't make sense. So I was just thinking because like you're a business guy, so like I like to look at the angle, like okay, well down the line maybe this or this or whatever because you were talking about how that's a more lucrative space. And I know you're not in it for the money, but I was curious, like, is this some kind of plan to expand or combine with something like, or find someone like that's in the space that may be like not able to care for them, and you got new inventory. Like, how do you move that inventory? There's a lot of cool aspects to it, like with any product, but in this case, it's like living animals that are specifically sought after by certain people.
Yeah, and it makes it a little harder to plan. You'll see, people will buy collections and keep some and resell them because, with the overall economy, people have been getting in and out more. So there is, some pros to that. And, with, I guess, overall hopes would be to, give each animal more space down the road too,
Mm-hmm.
offer better for them. I think would be, you might end up with less animals. Sometimes certain breeders have more success when they do that too. Like
Mm-hmm.
you get way overwhelmed and then you go from producing 100 babies to 20 babies, but you still got the same overhead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, it makes sense. I just was like, I've been realizing I've been asking all the questions, even though you brought me on, but I've just been wanting to learn about the space a little bit. Like I find learning about things that I don't know about very enlightening. It's cool to always try to learn more about things, even if it's not something that you do or you're interested in. Just having the knowledge is kind of cool. So that's why I've been asking all the questions. But let me turn it to you. Obviously, you brought me on, so let me shut the hell up and just answer some of your questions for a minute.
So, well, and it's good because I wanted to get you a little back knowledge on it. Being it is kind of a $1 billion industry from small end to the bigger end, even to the point now, like Chewy's getting into the reptile market.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was kind of curious what would be kind of like your bull and bear case for Chewy getting into it. Like, do you think will help the overall hobby grow?
I mean, you know, will it help the hobby grow? I mean, it's hobbies and pets is very is big about like virality and marketing, right? So when a video goes viral or something goes viral about a certain type of pet or something like that, you see an influx of people buying it, right? So like for
Yeah.
example, if there's a viral video of a hamster being super cute and a little girl who's 3, talking about it's her best friend, and they do a video of her going to school with it, right? Oh my God, everybody's got to have a hamster right now, right? But obviously we know that it's difficult it's not so easy, right? Just having one. So I think that's about it. we're seeing more and more people move towards pets, and the reason is because people don't have money. Younger people are basically giving up on the idea of owning a home or having retirement, and because of that, they're spending their money now. They're doing things that they want to do, and they're not having kids as much, right? First off, it's too expensive to go on dates and too expensive to even think about a kid, because kids cost you about $350,000 to $400,000 a year, or 350 to $400,000 to raise them from 0 to 18, and that's with good insurance and without college. So it's just there's just no money there. So more and more Americans are turning to having pets, and it's been dogs and cats, and we know that Chewy is got a bunch, like over 80% of their revenue is subscription based, so it's just people just automatically subbing, which is just free money, right? And the average person spends about $750 on their pet outside of medical expenses. So there's a big market for that. It's much cheaper than having kids, and you still get the companionship. But we're seeing a slowdown in the larger breed animal purchases over the past 2 quarters. And I think the reason is people are tightening up on their expenses as well. So things like chew toys and treats and stuff are seeing a little bit of a pullback, which that means that if people are still lonely, they're not having kids, they want pets, but they can't have large breed, there might be a shift towards less, more, low maintenance types of pets. And maybe that could be, reptiles and stuff like that, because obviously, they don't have that reputation of being cute and cuddly and lovey-dovey. But I think as more people start moving to that and more videos come out, more virality comes out, maybe people start looking at it differently and say, hey, that's actually a cool idea. I could have this animal. I got to give it one rat a day, or this one box of crickets a week. And I could still have something to come home to. So I think that the economics of it, plus the human psychology factor, I think coming together might actually be a bull case for this industry.
Well, and a lot of
We
them.
should have led with this.
It's all right.
No,
A
I'm
lot of
saying
them.
because like I'm my gears are turning now, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a second.
Well, and like one of the things, like you mentioned, the subscriptions, I think they might target like feeders. You feed your reptile 30 crickets a month. You set up this subscription, and every month you get 30 crickets, and they might suggest, hey, you could also offer this insect for your pet that's a little more but a little nicer, a little better quality. you know
Mm-hmm.
what about like a bear case for Chewy, like maybe risks to small breeders and retailers?
I mean, small breeders, retailers obviously are a smaller part of the overall revenue for Chewy. Bear case for Chewy is a few things. Number one, is that, like we talked about, the economics of it. A lot of people are cutting back on expenditures. Now, wealthy people, who are just spending, they don't care. They're spending a subscription base, but that's while a report says 10% of earners make up 49% of consumer spending. It's a little bit skewed. It's more like 20% make up 60%, and so those people are going to continue to buy, but that's a smaller amount of people. There's a lot more people that aren't spending. And if those people end up cutting back on it, then you're talking about, just because, people with more money are spending more, they're spending more on different products. When you're talking about a single sector, that's the whole combination of people. And so, a larger group of people not spending is going to hurt that potentially. So cost per person or per pet is gonna potentially go down. Also, it's a very competitive market, and Chewy has spent a lot of money, taking some debt to own that market, and their competitors are falling apart, and they're picking up the assets for very cheap from them. But if Amazon decided, hey, we're gonna give a stab at this again, we've already got we got billions of people on our space, and if we start doing direct to consumer, pet products and food and stuff like that at cheaper from wholesale and international, then that could hurt Chewy. So, I would say that the economics of it and the fact that competition could arise at any moment would definitely be a more bearish scenario for them.
Now, what about from the case, like for the reptile community? Would it be bearish for them, do you think, or overall the
I mean, honestly, like I'm not, familiar with that the community as a whole, but like, if you're talking about the breeder or the buyer.
I guess it'd be more like you see certain companies starting to worry as they're growing into space, whether, they might have been more medium sized trying to expand, whereas, depending on the product you sell, like I don't think Chewy will sell live animals themselves, more so the products and the stuff that, you don't have to take care of as much, it's less overhead for them.
I would say, in my opinion, just based on the economics of it and fact that people are lonely and still buying pets, I would say it's bullish for them because as more people are cutting back on their spending, they're unable to afford the upkeep and care of larger animals that need more care and more attention and more things for them. So with them, that somebody who would might maybe have gotten a dog or a cat in the past, but can't afford that or can't afford the upkeep on it, may want. So you go from children to pets to smaller, more less maintenance and less costly upkeep of pets. And I would say, you know, obviously a shot in the dark here, but I would say that, in my opinion, would be more bullish case for the community because again, people are gonna want to not be lonely. They're gonna want pets, but they can't afford dogs and cats. What's the next thing? It's something that recognizes you, something you take care of, something that's there for you every day, and is low upkeep. Well, you can't get a friggin' chinchilla, right? That's a lot of upkeep. You can't a bunny rabbit, is really kind of not, is a lot. You need more space, stuff like that. But what is something? And as people unfortunately are unable to afford homes, and the renting market continues, more people renting and more people in renting the same space, you're going to have less space to have that pet, and so you have to have something small. So fish, small snakes, like you said, geckos and stuff like that. I think, that might actually be a bull case for that community just because people are lonely. They want a pet. They don't have the space or the money. They're going to have to look for something small. And that's kind of maybe where that is.
Well, to add on to that, I know people that will breed some of the bigger stuff have been trying to downsize them to make them smaller, like, retics and Burmese pythons, aren't the best pet. They're 15, 20 foot, but if you can get them 6 to 8, it's not as bad.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, like in a slower, uncertain market, can reptile businesses adjust their marketing to not only survive but maybe strengthen their community long term?
Using in which way?
Like, I guess, how could the small breeder or small business, adjust what they do to survive, an ever changing market?
I mean, like I said, with any product, it's about getting in front of people, right, and getting in front of eyes, and that's why so many businesses spend billions and billions of dollars on marketing and advertising and trying to get viral stuff like that. You want to convince people they need something, right? Whether it's via fear, whether it's via not in this case, fear, but like whether you play on emotions, right? And that's what these businesses do. And whether you call it that or not, it doesn't really change the fact that you have to use people's emotions. Like, for example, in my sector, right, in my world, you get more clicks, more views, more sales if you convince people that either A, you can make them rich, or B, that if you don't listen to them, you're going to lose everything. Fear or sex, right? Or fucking, whatever the question thing is. So you're playing on emotions, right? And I don't do that because it's just not in my wheelhouse. But if you want to get someone to buy something from you, you need to convince them that they need it, or that they're going to be with it, they're going to miss out. So if that sector or individual breeders are going to grow, they need to have an online presence. They need to create cute little videos, or if they want to appeal to more hardcore people, like a video of a python, getting a rat or something and making it cool, or whether they get viral stuff like that, and then be like, if you want your own, you can DM me or check out here or something like that. I think for individuals, especially small businesses, it's all about utilizing social media and online content to get your business in front of somebody. That's how most small businesses today's world are able to take themselves to the next level. I mean, there's a business that reached out to me. They make like a moisturizing balm, right? And they make it out of like, beeswax and some other stuff like that. But they made a few viral videos, and they had 50,000 orders last month. So, this small company that sells something that is not for everybody and is in a very strong market against some of the biggest names in the world is now outpacing them because they were able to do that. So I think that if a small business, or make a video or make a branding or advertising of why having this animal is better than the other thing, right? So if I was gonna do the opposite of not playing on feelings, I would say, okay, listen, everybody wants a pet. Everyone, are you feeling lonely? You can't have kids. You play on that whole thing of like loneliness, COVID, whatever. And it's like, but you can't afford a dog because it's, and throw the price out there. It costs you, ten to $12,000 a year in care for a dog. That's expensive. A lot of us don't have that kind of money, but we all want a friend. Well, guess what? And then you show a video of you with your lizard and you feeding him and him looking happy and whatever like that. And then you know what I'm saying? And then it's like here's a gecko. You know what I mean? And it's like, wait a second. That looks cute. That looks fun. That is there. I would love to have a friend. I can't afford 12,000 a month, but that is super cute and super cool and he looks like your friend. So that's how you would sell that to somebody. So I think that would be my brain just thinking of how a small business or somebody, a breeder, would find a way to take their business to the next level or give them an edge against competition.
One thing to mention, I know you're just spitting off your head, so you don't know this. Certain individuals, if you do feeding videos, try not to do like live feeding videos. Like certain people will even do it to a worse extent, like taking a Burmese python to eat a dog for virality. Like there's some
Yeah,
weirdos out.
that's why I kind of kept it at a mouse, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, like try to have a good way you approach it, I guess be the
Yeah, I
best
think
way
the
to say it.
second part of the cuteness and the play
Yeah.
on the idea of, hey, you open up a video and it's like, it's talking about how expensive, what I'm saying, like use that monetary side of it, like, we know it basically with being a nice way of saying, hey, I know you're lonely and broke, but you need a friend here. You know what I mean? But like in
Yeah.
that nice way. So I would say even if it's not virality, it's leaning on what is something on the back of people's mind and money and loneliness and utilizing that as a way of enhancing your market share.
I think that's good, yeah. Now, and this one, I guess, would kind of help with the marketing you just talked about. Like, but there's kind of cycles, they go up and down in prices. Do you think businesses are better off trying to do a little bit of everything or stick with what you're good at, focus? Like, for example, should a ball python breeder only breed ball pythons, or should you try to do different species if one's not doing as well, or stick with what you love? Or
Well, I mean, again, if you're doing it out of love and expertise, obviously, you don't necessarily have to. It's like with content creation, right? Maybe what you're doing is the right thing. Maybe you just need to pivot the way you're doing it, right? So perhaps let's say you're a ball python breeder and you're just not seeing that it's profitable or the overhead's too much. You're just not getting clients or your customers, right? Maybe it's not the ball python, maybe it's your approach to the way that you operate the business. So I would say before you abandon what you like and love and move on to something else, what you're doing is you're giving up your passion for money. And the moment you do that, you end up failing in the other because you're not really in it for what you want. You're in it for the money. And when you're only in it for the money, you don't give your all, you don't give it the best, and then you end up failing there too. So I would say instead of saying, "Oh, I'm not doing a good job selling ball pythons, I'm going to try and sell bearded dragons," say, "What if I did this differently? What if I tried a different approach? What if I pivoted the way I'm doing it? Who I'm going after, the type of content, the way I market my business, the cost associated with it or something." That's what I would say. I would say try several ways of what you're doing differently before you decide to abandon it, move on, because you might abandon it, move on, find out that you're not good at this because you're in it for the money and you don't have passion, which means you burn out quickly. And all the while you could have just pivoted over there and been happy and make money. So, it's not a good idea to just do that. I mean, I see that with content creators. I say, maybe it's not what you're doing, maybe it's the way you're doing it, right? Like, you love to game. Maybe you're streaming gaming, but you're only doing FPSs and you're not getting a lot of views. What if you switched over to another type of game you like that is not popular right now, but you can own that niche, right? Maybe it's, I don't know, some RPG game or something else. So, don't abandon your passion just because it didn't take off. Just tweak it, just pivot within that before you do that, because it's better to try to find something you enjoy before you just go chase the money.
I think that's an excellent way to put it. Uh, what about for new businesses entering the market? What financial or strategic planning should be done before committing heavily?
Give your bear case scenario. Number one, what if this doesn't work out? What's my contingency plan? What's my backup? Always start things as a hobby first before you do it as a job. Because if you leave everything to start as a job, you've now fully committed everything, and this plan has to work. Now, Arnold Schwarzenegger famously said that I don't have a plan B. I only have a plan A. That way I can't fail at plan A because I don't have a plan B. That's great to say to somebody, who's made it and got back, but not having a plan B is the way that people lose everything, and then it gets worse. So, for example, my streaming, I did not, just quit my job one day and turn on a stream. I was streaming for, 7 months before I decided I'm going to quit my job to do this. And even then, I was a very small stream, but I had been doing it consistently. I saw that there was a constant viewership, and I said, if I give this my full attention, I think I could make it grow bigger. But I didn't just quit my job. I had the GI Bill, and the GI Bill paid me a small amount of money while I went to school full time. So what I ended up doing was, as I said to my wife, I said, okay, I'm going to go to school and get my degree. It's going to be 2 years. I'm going to give myself this streaming career for 2 years. I'm going to try and build it. And I'm going to do a full stream, give my full attention to it to try to grow it, and go to school at night, every night. So I was pulling 18-hour days. And the idea is that if I failed at this, at least I would have completed my degree, had some small income coming in, so we weren't like giving everything up, and then say, okay, I gave it a shot, it didn't work, let me go back into what I was doing with a degree and go from there. So I had a backup plan. So I would say, do it and do it passionately, but test the waters before you jump in, because you never know when it might be too shallow. You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
the thing. It's murky waters out there. And you may think that because it's the edge of the cliff and that there's a lot of there might be a rock under there. There might be shallow. So test the waters before you jump in.
What about creators? How could they help new keepers feel welcome instead of intimidated, like similar to like new investors get worried and you kind of, what's the best way to ease someone in to join the community, the welcome to grow?
How is it to welcome them in as be a creator and welcome new people into the space, like in the creator space or in the reptile world?
Just like new reptile keepers, like so they're not intimidated by something new. What would be a good way to help them?
I
Like
mean,
how
it's all about you don't get a second chance at a first impression. So the question is before you got to be honest with yourself. When you speak to somebody new in the space, do you honestly look at them as somebody who is competition or somebody who's going to bring value to the space? And if you look at them like competition, you're going to fake it, and everyone's going to see through that. So I wouldn't even approach that person and welcome them in. I would just be honest with myself and just say, okay, whatever. But if you're really looking at that person, or that is as a rising tide raises all boats kind of scenario, like for example, I see a new stock streamer. I don't look at them as competition. I look at them as, okay, they are building the space and they're bringing more viewers and they're bringing more things to it. If I lose viewers to somebody else, that's more about me and not them. You see what I'm saying? So if somebody else starts streaming about the stock market or finance in the same time I am, and my viewers go to them instead of me, that's because of what I'm doing or not doing, not because of what they're doing. That's more about me than them. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, they're doing it better than me. Well, I must be doing something not good or differently. Maybe it's not. The idea though is if they build their own audience and there's cross posting there, then they might have a viral moment or they might get stumbled upon by somebody and then they watch them and then they might watch me too and it builds the whole thing up. So that's kind of how I look at it. So that's it's about being honest with yourself. Number one. Number two, a lot of times people accidentally gatekeep because they have knowledge and they want to just spread this knowledge with somebody, but they overwhelm them. And that new person might think, oh my God, this person is just trying to like tell me, oh kid, you don't know what you're doing. And then they don't want to listen to you. So I would say, in any new space, think of it like a friends group or like going to school, a new school, right? Or a new kid at school, right? Well, you think about it like high school. You're there, there's a new kid first day at school. How do you really want to welcome him? Are you going to kind of feel him out first before you decide, because you don't want to like make friends with him. It turns out he's the next fucking school shooter, right? But like, or maybe that is the person you want to make friends with just in case. But like, it's like, just be honest. And if you really do want to help them, be more along the lines of, hey man, welcome to the space. I'm sure always start out with, hey, you might need to know this. No, I'm sure you know a lot about this, but it's going to get crazy. And if you need anything, just reach out to me. Let me know. You know what I mean? Just be there for them. Don't tell them what they need. It's like talking to women, right? The men, we're problem solvers, right? We're problem solvers. Your wife, your girlfriend, your spouse, or your significant other starts telling you about some problem they're having, and at work or with some friend or something like that. And the first thing you want to do is, well, why didn't you just tell her this, or maybe next time do this, or that. But that's not what they want. You know what I mean? They just want to vent to you. And then they'll ask you if they want your help. Don't offer it. Think of it the same way, right? Don't, you're not there to problem solve for them. Just be there for them and tell them you need something. And I think that makes people comfortable in a space. That way they feel like they're welcomed.
Now, when people are like growing their business or starting it in the past, due to the cost of certain species, they would like cash out their 401k. Would you recommend people doing that to start a business, or
Never cash out your 401k. And the reason is that unless it's an absolute emergency, the compounding that you miss out on that is insane. So for example, if you take out $1,000 of your 401k now, number one, you're going to pay taxes on it and you're going to get penalized 10% on it. So now you already had a loss or less than you would have had. If that $1,000 stays in for the next 30 years at compounding of seven, if I pull up a compounding calculator here, okay, and I take $1,000, right? And let's say, and there's no contribution, and it's for the next, let's say 30 years, right? Let's say you're 35 years old, and you're going to be 65, right? And 7% annually, right? So you're going to take out $1,000 now, right? And you're going to end up getting probably 20% of some of that. Let's say you're $300 gain on that, right? 30% on it. So you're going to lose $60 of that in taxes plus another $100 in taxes and stuff like that. So now you're at like $800. You're going to put that out there. Well, that $1,000 alone without any other contributions and sitting in there is gonna grow by 700%, right? So let's say you take out 10,000, you're talking about 70,000. You take out 100,000, about 700,000. And that's like, oh yeah, but I need the money. Well, a better idea is if you have a significant or a solid 401k, you can take out a loan against that, or you can look for a private business loan. And even if they charge you 5, 7, 8% on that interest, which is a lot, you don't really see that unless you have bad credit. You're paying interest on that in a short time frame while you use that capital. But taking it out of your 401k, for every 1,000 you take out, you're giving up $7,000 at minimum at the end, as well as minusing the taxes and the penalties. So you're basically saying, here's $800 instead of 7,000. So why do that and cash out your 401k when you could borrow against it, which is basically instead of taking that money out and losing all that, you're basically saying, I'm just replacing that with a short-term, loan, and then utilize that. And then you can pay that loan off in the short term while not having to worry about 30 years of missed gains. Small business loans, same thing. You should never, ever touch your 401k unless it is like life or death.
I think part was to some of the other breeders in that space were overpassing the returns that you could get quickly. Whereas, just because you buy it for 2,000, when you sell it and have babies in 3 years, that $2,000 animal's $500, so it barely pays the cost. Yet you have all the overhead and stuff, and like you said, the loss of future gains too on top of it.
Well, I mean, you're losing 30% right out the gate when you take it out because you got capital gains tax and you've got a penalty for withdrawing early. So you're taking a 30% loss the
Yeah,
moment you withdraw it from your 401k. So now it's like, okay, I'm going to take a 30% loss. That's way more than the interest you're going to pay borrowing against it. And not only am I taking a 30% loss, I'm taking an 800% loss on potential future gains, maybe even more. Now, sure, yeah, but what if I turn that money into 20 times the money? Well, sure, do it, but do it with a loan against your 401k or a small business loan or even a HELOC against your house. At least you have equity in the house that you can survive on. You just don't want to do that. I think there's this idea that tapping into a 401k is a good idea because the money has grown, and let's say your money's grown by 50%, you're like, "Oh, well, I got 20% off that 50% and then a 10% penalty, I'm still in the green." It's like, yeah, but that compounding is way more. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if that $1,000 that you had in there had a 50% gain and now it's at, $1,500, right? You take it out, you're going to get 30% immediate loss. But if you kept it in, that's going to turn into $12,000.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And sure, it's like, yeah, but that's down the road. Well, you're going to get there eventually. You don't want to get there broke.
yeah, yeah. It sadly stuff at the end starts getting expensive too. You got more healthcare expenses when you're older, usually. Um, what about trends or economic signals would make you bullish on the reptile industry over the next 5 to 10 years?
It's not a signal service. Signals with bullish on the reptile sector. I don't know enough about it, but with any sector right now, especially for something that is very niche like that, I would say what makes it bullish. Again, younger people not saving for the future and not getting their own homes, and and not having kids because of that, and then people being more isolated and loneliness is high, as I said before, and then people wanting that companionship but unable to afford large pets and stuff like that. And I think that would be bullish for the reptile industry. I would say, as we've seen more and more younger generations of people be more eco-conscious, I think there's going to be more of a push for regulations in the future about, poaching animals and black market animal sales and whatnot. And I would say that, just like we've seen with green energy and nuclear push right now, I would say if the younger generation does continue to be more eco-conscious and care more about their environment and stuff like that, that is a bull case scenario because with that would be less supply in the market, and people would have to turn to breeders. And if they turn to breeders, then obviously you have more demand for that supply, which brings prices up. And then that would be something I would say would be a bull case scenario for the reptile industry in the future. The change of that mindset.
Well, and sadly, with some of it too, without people breeding certain species, you start losing them in the wild from predators or palm fields popping up or
Yeah.
that. One like kind of final thing I wanted to tap on, before I let you go, since we're about at an hour. Your wife and you have InFluNest on the side. Have you thought
Mhm.
about expanding some of that into reptile market?
I mean, the idea with InFluNest is that it's more so gained and focused for people that are, because for example, when I started streaming, I couldn't find an agency even when I was above 1,000 viewers and I was a 0.05% streamer. I couldn't find it because nobody wanted to represent me, because what happened is they they dedicate their team to buying blocks of ads, right? So for example, they have they go to a AT&T and they say, hey, do you, or AT&T says, we want to advertise. Okay, well, I can give you 10 streamers and they'll all do this for you and you'll get this many views for this block, and then they sell that. But with a finance streamer, I'm the only one doing it, so there's not like a big block they could sell. So they would have to dedicate somebody individually to me, and to get these deals, and it wasn't cost effective. So I didn't have an agency for a long time. It wasn't until I really blew up and people were like, hey, we can actually make money off of him, did that happen. So because of that, my wife was like, well, how do creators who have special content or just not, because I think only like 0.5% of streamers have an agency. How do the rest of them find deals? And so she came up with the idea of creating that marketplace. And so the idea is that like let creators connect with businesses directly, and they can all filter it out. So I would say if I was in the reptile space, a way to utilize something like that is that if I found a creator who does animal content, conservation content, wildlife content, and I wanted to like, I don't know, and I sold like maybe not the reptiles, but maybe reptile, accessories or cages or feeders or something like that. And I wanted to reach the audience, and I don't have a huge budget, then I can reach out to them directly, and or not directly, but through the exchange, so I can find them and they can find me, and use that as a way to get your business out there instead of spending money on ads and not knowing who it's going to land in front of, because you don't want to spend money on ads and it land in front of people who care about gaming and poker, right? They're not going to buy pet supplies or reptile supplies.
Yeah.
But if you're a small business, you go on InFluNest because it's free. You go on InFluNest, you sign up and you say, I'm looking for creators of this size and whatever. It filters for that. And then you put your ad out there and you say, I am looking to sponsor somebody, or do a sponsored stream or a partnership for my product. And then they are obviously something that they do, they do wildlife conservation, whatever. They say, oh crap, I want to do that. You click, you guys work something out. And then that's a way of getting, because influencer marketing is the biggest thing right now. I mean, that's how you get out there. Nobody pays for TV ads anymore. Banner ads are great, but everybody uses a pop-up blocker. So people want influencer marketing, and they want, niche specific. And so I think something like InFluNest would actually, not just because it's my wife's company, this is literally what it's designed for, is to have businesses all sizes find the specific creator and type of niche community that they've built and put it together and get their product in front of the right eyes at a cheap price. And I think that's something that would be good, or a use for it.
Do you think, and I know it's not your guys' sole priority at the moment, do you think in the future, do you think it'd be worth maybe going to certain reptile shows, passing out InFluNest? Because there's a lot of people that do have, YouTube channels, TikToks, other things that might be beneficial for InFluNest that, I know you guys aren't really heavily marketing it as some,
Yeah, no, it's not. We're not heavily marketed because we obviously both, have full-time jobs, and it's kind of like a side thing. Going to a specific convention to do it, is not usually a huge ROI for a startup like that, because it's a big cost for a very unknown return on that. But reaching out to spaces like you're a boomer like me. You remember when we used to have like message board sites, right? Like
yeah,
community sites like that, where you would go and like everybody would be there for a specific thing. But I think maybe going to like a subreddit. The problem is that nobody wants to see advertising those subreddits. But like going to a subreddit for small businesses, especially around that, might be something. As far as going in person, it might be a bit, unless the actual convention was like, hey, we'll do a swap. We'll pay for you to come here and do this, and you do a talk about finance and stuff or whatever. Like and so the reptile market might not be there, but I think that it's still, you never want to dismiss something, because the most powerful blocks of people are oftentimes overlooked. You know what I mean? Like, for example, no one did think that streaming about stocks, money, economics, and finance on Twitch would ever have a viewership. And here I am. And
yeah.
it's oftentimes it's like, oh, well, you dismiss it. You're like, oh, well, the reptile community isn't worth my time. No, you don't. No, trust me. communities that are untapped and are overlooked oftentimes are for when they're basically put together in one area can be some of the most powerful and most beneficial to a business, right? Because you might think, oh well, that's not worth my time, but there's a lot of people who are breeders and people that sell things and people that buy things and people that own reptiles. So it's a lot. And they're all underrepresented because there's nobody to do it. So you may think you may think 100,000 people in America is not that much because you think of 350 million. But if you're one person catering to 100,000 people, you cornered a market. You see what I'm saying? So I never
Yep.
want to dismiss it, but I think that I would say that is definitely a market that we've never really explored before, and we might actually look into it. Maybe we could reach out to you if we decide to kind of, we should say, like, where would we be a good place to maybe try to connect businesses with creators, because those businesses want to get their product out there and
Yep.
creators want to make money. And I'm a business, I want to get my product in front of the specific audience, and the best audience is an influencer who has a very dedicated audience who whatever. How do I do that? I don't want to spend $10,000 throwing ads at Amazon on people that may never click my link. I want to spend $1,000 on everyone looking at my product. How do I do that? And that influencer sitting there at home, like, I don't have an agency. I wish I could find a sponsor. I do wildlife content and farm stuff, and my audience likes wildlife and pets and content. And all of a sudden, it's like, hey, both of them get the biggest bang for their buck.
Yeah. I think you kind of answered everything amazing, Stocky. I think, if there's another time down the road, I'd like to pick your brain again, but we're past
No,
an
I
hour.
love to. I love this shit. I love talking. Just like you have a passion for the reptiles, I have a passion for money and business and stuff, and I love bullshitting and talking about it. So obviously, it took a while for us to connect here, but if we ever get a time to BS again in the future about something, or I end up having like a funny story or something that's content related, maybe we'll connect again, and then I'll let everybody know we're live too, so they can watch.
Well, thank you for your time. And if anyone's looking to reach out and watch you, the Stock Guy at Twitch is probably the best place. And you do shorts on YouTube.
Yeah, you
Anywhere
can find
else?
me on. Yeah, I stream on Twitch. You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Pornhub, and I do have a few other places there. What was it? I forgot where it was. Only Boas, I think. I can't remember.
All right. Well, you
Like
have
to
a
see my
great
pet
rest.
snake.
Thanks again, Stocky.
Nah, man, appreciate you having me on, and to your audience, listen, appreciate you welcoming me in on the community, and hope to see you again.
Take care.
All right, do I take my shirt off or good?